Welcome to Bulwarks and Bulldust. We've got Lee Randall back on the panel today after winning the Brisbane to Gladstone.
Yeah, welcome back, Lee. We're in the presence of a sailing legend here. He will be taking autographs later today.
Right. Okay.
Take it away, Lee.
Enough of that. So today on Bulwarks and Bulldust, we're going to talk about, are boat shows still relevant? So welcome to our first panel discussion. Well, let's kick it off. I personally have been an exhibitor and a attendee at boat shows over the last 10 to 15 years. And you know what? I reckon we're out of relevance. I reckon we're in need for a time of change, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
So, Lee, does that mean you're actually calling Bulldust on boat shows? Just to be clear.
I am absolutely calling Bulldust on boat shows as they currently are formatted, yes.
Well, we better get into it because something tells me we're going to start panning quickly for some gold dust before the phone rings just a little bit too much. So let's, as Lee's just said, crack on it.
Right. So firstly, we're going to talk about decline in exhibitor numbers over the last 10 to 15 years. Firstly, where do you think Sydney's decline started, John? Let's start there.
Okay, well, I think, Sydney, if we take an Australian perspective to start with before we go global, I think Sydney really had a decline when they went for the redevelopment of the Darling Harbour precinct, and obviously then the internal space had to move off to Glebe, and I think that really did signify the end. And at that stage, Century Cove just kept going in leaps and bounds, and the visitor numbers certainly sort of matched that now, where Century Cove is mind ball, or if not greater than Sydney.
So you think that Century Cove is the premier boat show?
I think so, and I think it's access to the international spaces. It's just that bit quicker to get to from Asia and so forth, and I think we are seeing a lot more of that kind of thing where internationals are coming in to see the vessels on display and to talk to people. So yes, I think it's now the premier.
I might just jump in here. Lee, you mentioned decline in visitor numbers, but every year they seem to post significant, healthy-looking visitation. I think they're sort of quoting about 43,000 this year on the website. Would you suggest that those numbers are accurate or a little bit fluffed?
Well, I think you can always assume that in a money-making venture, those numbers are a little bit fluffed. No disrespect to Melfi and their marketing machine, but I'm assuming those numbers. But I'm more talking about the exhibitors. I'm more talking about the smaller exhibitors that have a 3x3 stand that were paying $1,000 10 years ago and are now spending 10 grand, How does that work?
Space.
That's just for the space. Exactly
Let
right.
alone all the on-costs of food, accommodation, and I'd hate to think of all the other on-costs.
Yeah. Well, I guess it depends on how you measure what your KPIs are too, and how you measure that ROI. But obviously, you're putting your hand in your pocket for a lot of money. You've got your staff there for quite a few days. You've got all the lead up to that, and all the post pack up, and so there is sort of big hidden costs and all of that, but they're real costs on the bottom line.
Well, that's exactly right, Wally. I mean, if you look at it and you've got a water space of say $500,000 to $700,000, the old model was sort of 3 times with all the on costs. That puts it into the 1.5, 1.8 bracket. That's a lot of change. That's many bunches of flowers.
Yeah. So we're not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater. That they do have a relevance, but what they do need is a review and a refinement moving forward.
Well, I think for the good of the industry, right?
Yeah.
For the benefit of the marine industry. I mean, we could probably mount an argument that boat shows should be non-for-profit, that they should be there to help the industry grow and bring new people into the industry. But is that what we're getting?
Well, I don't know, but you actually make me ponder another question, which is, are boat shows for exhibitors or the attendees? Does $40 as an entry ticket give you the right to go and do things?
That's an interesting question.
If you're a large manufacturer, you don't need 45,000 people. There just isn't that number of people on the planet looking to buy large vessels.
Yeah.
So at what point is it a situation where the relevance of a huge number of people coming through a turnstile applies to you?
It's some interesting conversation.
I'd ponder that that's actually not the case at all. If you're at that level, you probably want 45 people through the door. That's probably going to be more your number.
Yeah, well, it's back to those KPIs again, though. I suppose if you think everyone that turns up to your exhibit or on the back of your boat is there to purchase, and that's what your expectation is, you're probably going to be disappointed. But if it's part of a marketing arsenal, part of a bigger plan, or part of a bigger timeline, then it probably pays off, because the cycle with some of these product sales and the journey with customers is going to be quite a long one, and you're there building relationships, and some of these things take quite a while to cultivate, and it may not always happen at the boat show. But what's the situation when somebody decides not to turn up to a boat show? Because we all know the boat industry is fairly tight, and people talk. And what's the sort of the other side? What's the flip side of that when they don't turn up? Usually a little bit of scuttlebutt sort of can come up as well.
Well, we had that recently with Düsseldorf. The two German manufacturers went there.
Yeah, sure, and I think that's very relevant. And every new boat outfit I speak to, they think that boat shows are still relevant. I don't think we're challenging actually that boat shows aren't relevant. What we're challenging is the current format, the current modelling, the current service to the industry that's being provided.
Oh, don't go soft on us now after that. Why don't we go and see what Wes Moxie from Riviera's got to say about boat shows?
We would be really keen to get your insights around boat shows. We've been posing a question of late: are boat shows still relevant? And as a really big player in that space, Riviera, just be keen to get your insights for our listeners.
Are we talking globally or are we talking locally?
Let's start local. Let's start local, perhaps.
I think locally, we made a conscious decision 5 or 6 years ago not to go to Sydney Boat Show. And we were all in at Sanctuary Cove Boat Show, and we communicated that very strongly to our dealer network and our customers. Come to Sanctuary Cove. For us to replicate what we do at Sanctuary Cove in Sydney and give people that choice of, do I go there 1 year, there the next year, too expensive, too hard, when most manufacturers are manufacturing in Southeast Queensland and most of your importers are in Southeast Queensland. This is their home. So to do it here and do it well is a cost-effective answer. To take all those boats to Sydney and replicate it, 8 weeks later, is madness. And we would spend circa $1 million in Sydney Boat Show of real hard cost, plus the hidden cost, people, human cost to do that well. We tried to convince the BIA and others that that's too hard, and they need to focus on one premium Australian boat show. And what you've seen is Sydney go down, and to the point where I think this year they're struggling to understand whether they can afford to have a Sydney boat show because they're not attracting the manufacturers due to the cost and all that sort of thing. Doesn't mean there shouldn't be a trailer boat show down there. Doesn't mean there shouldn't be some form of a boat show. But to move these big vessels around like they expect us to, the cost is just too high versus an airfare, versus coming to the Gold Coast, having a weekend away, creating that lifestyle show premium feel. I think there's a future for shows if they understand the premium feel the way Monaco understands that, the way Cannes understands that. Düsseldorf, to me, is too expensive. So I look at the global presence and I think we're going to see a rationalisation of shows. We're all in at Fort Lauderdale. That's a big selling show, big premium branding place for us. Sanctuary Cove, the same. We can give our customers a premium experience. We can showcase our factory. We can do all the other things. So I would like to see Sanctuary Cove repackaged and made better. And at the same time that Sanctuary Cove's on for super yachts or bigger boats, 40 feet and above, you might have a tinny and tackle show or a trailer boat show or other things at another venue that's got far easier transport parking for a family to go to and far less cost.
Yeah.
That's my view on shows of what should happen here locally. And I think you've got to keep reinventing who you are, what you are. Sanctuary Cove Boat Show was 1985, Boat Show 1. I was there and parking wasn't an issue other than when it rained. Of course, everything went muddy. But, there was wide open spaces everywhere. Well, those wide open spaces don't exist today. They're filled with houses.
How good are Melfi at taking information from the market, taking it from exhibitors,
like the
and
government.
making a better product. Sorry?
Bit like the, bit like the
government.
government. A bit like the government, to be honest. They don't want to listen. They think they need to be all things to all men instead of listening to what I'm saying about being premium focused and making it exclusive and making it easier to get to for the right people rather than traffic jams and buses. And, you're coming to buy a $3 to $5 million boat. Do I want to sit on a bus and do all that sort of stuff? Or am I going to pay $600 for a helicopter from Marina Mirage? Chances are they'll pay $600 and fly when they want, how they want. So transport is the biggest challenge Sanctuary Cove Boat Show has. How do we reinvent that? What do we do? Where do we get the parking? How do we move people in a classy, cost-effective manner and bring the right people to the show? They're all about saying, I've got 45,000, 50,000 people to the show. We don't need that.
How many people put their hands in their pockets?
That's right. But there is an audience that wants the tinny tackle, and there's nothing wrong with that either. Put it on at the same place where there's lots of parking, easy to get to. That can be the BIA, that can be Melfi.
So what would your message to Melfi be?
Understand who you are and what you want to be and what the restrictions of your property are.
So I guess on one of your comments there, Wes, you were talking about how you chose Sanctuary Cove over Sydney and you're all in for flips. Does that mean Palm Beach is on the chopping block?
No, not necessarily. We debate that a lot internally and return on investment. Where do you put your money? Rodney looks at it and goes, well, I spend that much there, and that much there. What's the return on investment? We look at everything as an outcome. You've got to sell boats at the end of the day. If you don't sell boats, it's nice to go to a show, but if you don't keep selling, you don't keep building boats. So there has to be a commercial outcome with it. And we debate that, and there is a lot of people say Palm Beach Boat Show is a great boat show to go to, but we don't sell anything. A lot of brands say that. Miami, hate going there, but geez, we sell a few boats there, so better keep going. There is some other brands now trying to push Palm Beach more. Is it too late in the cycle to get a boat this year? That's the question we all ask ourselves. Miami being in February, Palm Beach being in March, only a month difference, 5 weeks maybe. They're pretty close together to have two big shows again. So Fort Lauderdale being late October, early November, I can potentially order a boat, maybe get it for the summer period. Remember, they've got cold climate as well as hot climate. It's not a 12-month of the year boating cycle. New York, Washington, Maryland, all those areas, Seattle, Washington, all that sort of thing. So the Lake Districts, all of that top half is frozen. So, they're looking at seasons and all that sort of thing as well. So it's not one straight answer for over there. Again, you've got the history of the Miami International Boat Show. It used to be number one. It's probably number two now, and Lauderdale's number one, without question. And then you've got Palm Beach pushing up, trying to be number two. But I don't think they're there yet, and it's a bit later in the cycle to get a boat for the season. So,
So in your mind, it's less Dusseldorf and more Fort Lauderdale in your mind?
Well, Dusseldorf's a whole different thing. It's January and it's freezing cold outside and hard to put boats in that show. So we prefer Cannes in September for European shows. Much more what we do is Cannes, and then you can order the boats, get a chance to get them on a ship by April, May, and in for the summer season. That's how that cycle works. So we're always debating and looking at, in return on investment, what's the best.
So I think we can agree that, boat shows are still relevant, but the current model that we're using here in Australia is probably failing in a couple of different ways.
You need to give people a reason to get out and go to the shows. And we do that ourselves. We put our festival on, we put our training on, we do all of our stuff to bring people to Sanctuary Cove Boat Show.
Yeah.
Great social events, great training, great festival events and all of those things. There's a reason to come rather than just buy a boat. So we're not relying on Melfi to do all of that. We do that ourselves as well. So, we tend to self-help.
Yeah, we've raised that here on the panel. You really need to drive your own outcomes and check your own ROIs, not sit back, abrogate all those responsibilities, just turn up to the show and expect it's going to work for you or
Yeah.
your brand. You've got to
Without
work
question.
it. But without them, perhaps you get a lot more of a fragmented industry, because it does really pull the industry together and have a sort of a great milestone within the year. Would you welcome an industry sort of group to give feedback to Melfi? Would that be something that Riviera would provide?
Anything that
some good
makes
leverage?
it better for the industry, we're happy to help out.
Because you guys obviously got clout and scale.
Yeah, people tend to be jealous of Riviera and not listen a lot to. So, that's the Bulldust side of it. Everyone wants to be in our position, but they don't understand how hard we work at staying there. We're communicating already. Like, I can tell you Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, how many tickets we've sold for those 3 events. I can tell you what's happening on Wednesday night, pre the show, where we're going, what models we're releasing, what we're doing. We're already talking to our customers, our dealers about that and planning that out. Why? Because we want them to be in first to get the premium experience. So we're not waiting and hope plan. We know.
Which I'd say a lot of displays at boat shows are just a shotgun approach, right?
Correct.
Well, at the end of the day, you don't need 45,000 people.
No.
It might not even be 450, it might be 45.
Yeah, correct.
That's what you need.
Correct. We need quality over quantity and a great experience. They need to want to come to Sanctuary Cove Boat Show because it's a great premium experience.
And you're delivering much more than just a standard show experience. And that's something that we've also been really driving home.
But I also want every other brand, every other manufacturer to think like that, because I've been to boat shows before where we're the dominant player, no one else turns up. Oh, yeah, I like your boat, but I want to go and have a look at brand X, Y, and Z. So we might not sell. I'd rather everyone be there and compete with everyone. And if everyone's got the same mindset, we're all giving a great experience to customers. It's success over a long period of time then.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Wes, for your insights. I think we're sort of formulating a little bit of an opinion about boat shows here, and it's not all bad, but there's some work to be done.
Yeah, and the smaller players with the trailer boats and that sort of thing, those people won't travel as far either. They'll want to go to their local show in Brisbane or Redcliffe or, wherever the shows are. They don't necessarily all have to come to Sanctuary Cove or Sydney as such. So you can put on a great display as the BIA should and be promoting the industry and potentially consolidate with others as well, 4x4s, caravans, other things, lifestyle type shows. As Sanctuary Cove has done with the cars and other things, people typically like to have a great time.
So basically you're calling Bulldust on the BIA for handing over the keys to the mansion and giving it to their competitor.
Sure. I think it was crazy. I mean, on both sides. I'm not saying it was just BIA. Melfi as well. What are you doing? What do you want to do that for? Bulldust.
You're in the property business, not the event business.
Yeah, correct.
Thank you, Wes Moxie. Great insights.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're here at the Princess stand. Why don't we go down and have a wander and see what Greg Haynes has to say about boat shows? We've had a few debates about the relevance of boat shows moving forward. I guess, I don't know if we've all agreed yet, but in my mind, I think perhaps we agree, but there needs to be some kind of evolution with them and they need to stay relevant. But what are your thoughts and what are your comments on that subject? It sounds like a fairly big part of your marketing arsenal.
Yeah, look, boat shows worldwide are an important part of the whole marketing picture in the marine, because it's not often that you can get 6 princesses lined up, fully open, all the beds are made, everything's ready for people to get out of one, go from a 40 to a 50 to a 55 to a 65. And then we've got brokerage boats as well, but they can also compare our boats with the competition. And I always like to say to a client, they've looked at a 55. I said, I'll see you back in 2 hours. And they said, what do you mean? I said, you'll be back.
Right.
And 99% of the time they'll come back and say, now I see what you mean. It's just that there's little details on a princess that makes them just that much more special.
Is that especially true for people who might have been boating before as opposed to the new to boating? Because Princess definitely attracts a lot of new to boating people, possibly more so than some of the established or supposedly well-known brands. But do you find that it's across the board, or is it more particular that statement holds true for people who might be new to boating?
Yes, I think you're right, John. It's the people that are new to boating, they get on board and they just blows them away. And they sort of, then they go and look at everything else at a boat show and then say, okay, now I get that they might be a little bit more expensive, but so's a Bentley, and they can understand. And then
They probably showed up in a Bentley SUV. So
probably. But then also when you get them to the shipyard, if you can get a client to the shipyard, that just makes sense to them. They just look at the place and go, oh my God, this is just amazing.
We're here at the Sanctuary Cove International Boat Show. We're at the Yacht Sales Co. stand. It's a fabulous setup. Let's check out what Mark Elkington has to say about boat shows.
you've also raised the spectre of one of our most favourite discussion points here at Bulwarks and Bulldust, and that would be boat shows. Love them, hate them. Where do you stand?
Yeah, look, I've always loved them. I've always been a big supporter of boat shows. I think COVID changed my thinking, but that only took a year with a different mindset after COVID to actually go back to say boat shows are the key. You can't beat a boat show. Everyone says it's expensive and it's costly, and it is. It's not the cost of the boat show. It's we plan 1 year ahead for boat shows. We're going to start planning what boats we're going to bring to that show, what boats we have to lock away in production lines to get a new model here. It's a boat show is not about, it's boat show next month. We better ring up, book a marquee, a couple of pontoons, throw a couple of boats in and stand there with the flag. It's, Sanctuary Cove, the minute we walk out of that show, we start planning the next one. Okay, are we happy with our location? Do we like where we were? We always debrief, and the next boat show planning starts. What would we do different? We felt the way the traffic flowed. We always improve the way we do boat shows. But look, I think you can never, the trouble is someone walks into a boat show and says, they're new to your database. Oh, I haven't met you before. They may have followed you in, let's go back in the old days, it was print and, through yacht clubs and before social media. We never quite, we probably knew more where people came from in that era. Have a conversation. Oh, look, I'm from Royal Perth Yacht Club in Perth, and I know, old Kingy who's got one of your boats. And so, you kind of go, okay, but without the boat show, we would have never have met. He never made the phone call, sent the email to say, hi, I want some information. He walked to the boat show, and because we were there, we're engaged. And we can't we can't show it in a format to say exactly, but we feel 60% of every dollar we've produced in this industry has come from boat shows. Okay. If we weren't there, we wouldn't have got the sale. The sale may not come for 5 years. So then, in the old days, we never used to register people. Yeah, come on, have a look, walk off. Next thing they're on your website. Next thing when social media started, the first thing is, oh, look, this Facebook campaign, we've got Bill Smith here. That's where we've met him. And when Bill Smith buys a boat, so Bill, where did you really meet us? Where did you first come across us? Oh, it was a Sydney boat show in 2011. You had that boat. Then I came on in 2014. I've always loved this brand, but the first time he came on the database was through collecting so yeah. It's very disjointed. The only way you can really say where your business comes from is when when a family or a couple sign a contract, sit down and say, do you remember where you really first connected with us? Because our information says, it was on that Google ad campaign, it was on this broadcast, it was on this or that, because that's the first time they actually hit our database. But it doesn't mean, we'd won them 10 years ago.
Where they remember you from and where they actually first saw you are two different things as well. Quite often people don't recall where they may have seen you. And I've obviously experienced this in another life, and they'll join somewhere and they say, I saw you sign out the front, but, they were being primed months before and other ways. But it's about building that trust, isn't it? So it sounds like boat shows are pretty integral in your market arsenal, but it's work beforehand, planning, as you say, 12 months out, and then a lot of work afterwards. You can't just turn up on the day.
No. If you want to get benefits from boat shows, you have to look at them as a 12-month campaign. When one finishes, you start the campaign for the next. You start, the discussion, you start planning, you start making sure what boats we're going to have are going to be right. We start talking to the organizer going, we want that position again, please. Can we, can you make, so it's a process.
Yeah.
And then the leading to the show is full on, talking to customers, getting the sales team to let people know if there's a change of a boat. Sometimes we've got a boat on a ship. There's a hold up in Panama. We've seen that before. Go, hey, this boat,
every boat show.
Every boat show. Making sure your customers know this boat's not going to be here. Now this boat's going to be here, because someone might fly all the way from Singapore or Perth or Adelaide just to Sanctuary Cove, and all we've got an obligation to is let our audience know who that boat is not going to be there. Sorry guys, we're now going to do an event in 5 weeks, an open day. So if you want to cancel your flight, if you come into a boat show, surprisingly, some people do travel just to see one boat at a boat show. What I love about boat shows is the opportunity to explain your product to a buyer who didn't know that boat exists. Someone comes to look at a blue boat because it's in their mind. They've just retired. They've just hung up their hat. They've got their super and they're off to the boat show, and they've always wanted that blue boat, that 46-foot blue boat, and that's what they're there to buy. And they, you meet these people occasionally, and that's all they buy. But it's amazing how many of them now are starting to go, gee, I never realised a boat like this existed. All I've wanted, Mark, is to buy this blue boat. It's been, the photo's been on my wall for 10 years, and they buy something different. It shocks them as much as that's what boat shows are great for, because they realise that there is so much more that's suited to what they want to do. They still love that blue boat, but they buy the red boat because it has less compromises. It's got a better galley for the family. It's got a better draft for where they want to use it. It's got the fuel range that they actually really need. It doesn't, the compromises are so much less. It might be 30% dearer, might be 30% cheaper. But finally they go, thank God I came to this boat show to buy it and found the boat that I never thought I'd buy. That's what I love about boat shows.
It's also an opportunity to bring the whole industry together, though, isn't it? I mean, without it, I would think that it would be a lot of quite a fragmented industry as such. And I've argued that point. I think and is the responsibility with the boat show to make these highly successful, or is it with the individual exhibitors that are there to actually make sure that they deliver?
Look, I think the boat sales industry could be more united and more accepting that, I think if you've got a product and you go to a boat show going, this is the best boat, it's what everyone should buy, you're always going to be isolated in this industry, because that's not the case. We've got thousands of buyers for boats all coming to a boat show. What the audience want is an education. They want to get on a boat and understand the strengths and weaknesses, the positives and negatives of that product honestly. And they want to walk on and get the same from the next one. One thing we don't allow in our business, and I'm responsible for it when I was younger, a couple of times, bagging the opposition. That boat, we've got a real strong core in our business now going, I've referred buyers to brands of boats going, what you need is that brand. That's going to fit you. It's going to be a bit dearer, or it's going to be less cost, but that's, I think, the better brand for you. And the amount of brokerage listings we've got from that exercise, people going, you know what? I bought that orange boat you referred me to. You're right. It was the right boat. What do we get? We get the resale because there's some bond formed in that. It's a relationship. Boating's relationships. There's a lot of trust and there's a lot of confidence to build between a buyer and a brokerage or a dealer network. If you bullshit them, you're caught out within 6 weeks.
quickly, yeah.
They're caught out very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what the industry could do better is, yes, boat shows, we have all these things we do, but if we could get 80% of the industry together in a conference centre once a year and everyone tell their story, everyone talk about multis, monos, power sail, day boats, boats, daggerboard boats, all these different boats. If everyone understood the market better, we'd all be better salespeople. Because one thing I do see, some people only know, a 45-foot sports cruiser. They've never been on any other boat. They strongly believe, with all respect, that that's the only boat you should buy in the market. And there's people like that, and that's great. That passion's great, but the person who walks on that boat isn't getting an education. They're getting an education about that boat, but they're not being. What's the negative with this boat? Oh, none. There's nothing wrong. There's no negatives, but there is. Look at relationships, but there's compromises in relationships, boat buying a house, going on a holiday. You don't just go, that's the best holiday in the world. There's ups and downs. Everything's, everyone lands in a place where that's the best fit.
Yeah. Well, that seems like this has been, 35, 40 years in the development, this philosophy and this understanding and probably the posture that comes with that, just understanding how to treat people, how to deal with people, and ultimately you do the right thing when they come back. Just on the boat show point, we're going to throw an invitation to Claire Back, who has joined Melfi Events.
Yes.
And she's accepted. Lovely. So, and Claire, that's going to be an interesting space to see how Melfi evolves with Sanctuary Cove Boat Show, and perhaps if they get a little bit more feedback or take a little bit more on, from their exhibitors and from visitors, and create an event that can just evolve a little. Then it'll be interesting to see what they do with that space.
Yeah, it's like Singapore. They have a conference, marine conference prior to the boat show, and the boat show is conducted. It's it's had ups and downs. The Asia event, we all know, the Thailand Yacht Show. Boat shows, should be the most cohesive industry, involving the industry,
Yeah, you have to listen and learn and be didactic.
I think for all boat shows, 4 weeks after a boat show, they should invite all the exhibitors to a function centre. Everyone pays $200 a head. We all have a beer and a feed and go, let's have a debrief and let's work out if we want to make them, improve them.
Yes.
Some of the US boat shows are outstanding. I'm sure you've been to some of the, Cannes.
Yeah.
I know the organisation, Jean-Francois Fontaine was the chair of the marine industry in Europe there and led a lot of the evolution of Cannes Yachting Festival. And I've had conversations with him and listened to his story about Cannes' development. And, if we could do just a bit of what they do, we would evolve this market.
Well,
what do you think?
Bringing somebody from outside of the boating industry, I think, is a good move for Melfi, because Claire's got a lot of experience in other consumer events, large consumer events. So it's going to bring a breath of fresh air in, for sure. So that'll be good.
Yeah.
And from the exhibitor's point of view, if you were to throw your hat in the ring and say, this is what I'd like to change, which would make it better during the actual boat show or before the boat show. I mean, for me, I see one of the biggest problems exhibitors have is the disruption to their regular business.
Yes, but every business has we're in the sales business, it's like that's just part of your year. You've got to, you've got to just build that into the way you
do. But I also noticed last year, the Yacht Sales Co. didn't go to the Sydney International Boat Show.
We didn't. The reason being, we felt the market, the inquiry, this is a financial decision.
Yep.
I love boat shows, and I'm coming back. That was that was the hangover from COVID a bit.
Mm-hmm.
We had a pretty big forward order book. Our forward order book hit not far south of 100 boats to build around the world in the peak of COVID. I've never seen anything like it. People are ordering boats for a 30-month wait. For a 32 months was the longest.
I don't think we could handle that.
Yes.
I wouldn't be a part of it.
So when Sydney, as I say, we start planning our boat shows a year out. A year before last year's Sydney boat show, it was like, I can't see why we want to do this boat show when we can't really supply a boat for 2 years. We can't supply a boat do we need to spend this money on just putting our brand in the market? The second thing, I was going through a major transaction with a acquisition with Fontaine-Pajot Group buying 60% of our company. That was a distraction, and I just decided that no, we don't need to be there this year. We decided we went as Iliad. We said Iliad because we had a couple of production slots that we wanted to fill, which we did. Made sense. But I do regret it at the same time. I kind of go, yeah, well, look, we probably have a bit more of a decline than the industry at the moment is quite tough in this part of the world. You know, new boat business is nothing like it was. You know, we've gone from selling in our group in Asia Pacific, you know, a new boat every 4 to 5 days to a new boat every 10 to 15 days. You know, that's quite a big difference in if you have a restaurant that's full every night and it's 40% full every night overnight, that's pretty much what the market's in here. It's just basically stopped and slowed. The pre-owned market the growth is at a scale we never predicted. But because our footprint's expanding too. It's not just where we're taking more market share in this country. Our, Montenegro is going incredibly well for us at the moment. Our expansion in Asia is going very well. Our New Zealand business is growing. But to answer your question, Sydney Boat Show, mistake. We didn't go in hindsight, but pre the boat show, I didn't think it was necessary. And that got me kind of, got my confidence back. Boat shows. We just did Singapore Yacht Show. It was a fantastic boat show.
So you have to not be in it to understand that you need to be in it.
Yeah, and you know what you've got to do? You've got to look at a cycle.
Yeah.
This industry, I look at it in 3-year cycles. If you want to judge every decision on what happened this year, you'll make the wrong decisions in this industry every year. You've got to amortize it over 3 years. In 2018, we sold...
Is that something like the fire when the roll and sale changes?
Pretty much. That's how I'd look at it.
It sounds like
it's just because you have 1 year this doesn't happen. You don't go, I'm going to change my whole business now. You go, let's see what it does next year because it's a different version of events. Then, like I look at boat shows in the 3-year cycle. We have one boat show that produces nothing, and it's quite disheartening. We have a boat show that produces results. 2018, we sold 18 boats. We sold more boats, more Fontaine-Pajots than Riviera. 2018. 18 signed contracts in 2018. I remember chatting to the Riv guys, they sold 16. And I think Riv are the number one sales company in Sydney historically. And that was like an accolade for us, and they all went through by one. 17 got delivered. The year after was a very mediocre boat show. So that 3-year cycle, I look at it over 3 years, that's great return. But if you look at it year on year on year, just you have one bumpy year doesn't mean don't expect it the next year because the next year could be an absolute. What happens is 10 new products hit the market, so the market's confused. Shit, what do I do? We thought we had that client on our boat, but something's hit the market that's as good, has got similar compromises, and you lose it. It happens. You don't beat yourself up over it. You don't say, oh, that product's, built in bloody Poland or built in Thailand or built in China or built in whatever. You shouldn't buy it. It is, well done. Well done. We've lost to a good competitor. And that's how the industry should be kind of well done. It's like the Leopard guys and and us are pretty close. We always kind of go, how'd you go today? It's all pat on the back and, we got one away and we got two away and it's all pretty honest. And it's quite a good atmosphere. If we get everyone kind of going, well done, you sold out boats, we sold none.
Yeah.
That'd be a nice way for people to lead boat shows. next year, let's see what we can do.
And off the back of what always seems to be a very successful Santry Cove Boat Show 2025, we were all there in different capacities. We're here to talk in our first panel discussion about boat shows and whether they're still relevant for both the marine industry themselves and also the attendees, the general public, which is you. John, what do you think of Santry Cove Boat Show this year?
Look, as always, boat shows tend to have a little bit of a bittersweet side to it, as well as obviously the enthusiasm. It's always great to catch up with people, so that's the industry side, if you wanted to look at it like that. And I was really delighted to see just how many people were going around. I'm not sure how many you saw, but that looked like the ticker tape was going whizzing through as the people attended.
Sure. Wally, what do you think?
Look, I thought it was terrific. I was there probably, you guys there were more of an official capacity. I had a little bit of that, but most of my time there was probably like the punters, walking around having a good look, getting a good feel for it. And I quite enjoyed it. I think there's a few aspects that we can probably cover off today that could probably help improve it. But I thought it presented reasonably well, but like everything, there's always room for improvement. So I was probably more like an attendee. You guys are probably more really working it hard, so you probably got a different takeaway than what I would have.
And I think also at this point a big shout out to Huey for holding off on any rain and sending it further south. I know the people down south weren't that happy and we're very sorry for those people, but in terms of the show, what might have looked like being a bit gruesome earlier on, at least Huey held off and sunshine prevailed, which always makes boating more attractive.
Well, I guess from my point of view, I went to Santry Cove Boat Show prepared to call bulldust on the whole thing. So I was very pleasantly surprised with Santry Cove Boat Show this year. I thought the general feel of the show was much better. Funnily enough, for the days that I attended, I actually felt like the crowd control was pretty good. And I think that's something I probably haven't seen before. I think potentially there's been some responses, some criticisms in the past few years, and I think there was also a much better flow through the show, and the end of the show wasn't as far away. Also, interestingly, C-Arm of Santry Cove Marina was actually taken up with boat show activity this year, which is the first time I've seen that in probably 3 or 4 years at least, if not before COVID. What do you think of the layout of the show, John? You obviously walked around and talked to a lot of people.
And walked around and then walked around again, I think, as it goes. I actually also appreciated that they didn't have a second pavilion down near the Lagoon Club, because I thought that it needs to probably push everything into one area. The other thing that really amazes me is that we're sitting here and still talking about boat shows, and we'll get to a sort of a more global perspective shortly, but I'm definitely a fan of boat shows having compartments, all being compartmentalised totally. I think that there's a lot of call for Santry Cove becoming the one boat show for Australia. I think that there's also a really good call for exhibitors to sort of be forced to accept that their current position might change, so that all the boats with sticks can go into one area, all the boats with fly bridges can go into another. I think that adds to the enthusiasm and adds to the whole picture, if you like to think of it like that. And in that way, I think that some of the signage and so forth and some of the bunting, point of sale, can also reflect that, welcome to the sailing area, welcome to the power area, so on and so forth. And I think we've talked off camera a lot about shows needing to add enthusiasm, and I think also too probably start to attract some of the smaller exhibitors who've in recent times walked away from it because it's just such a cost imposition, not only financial but time as well. And I think they need to see some activity so that they can have people come in to the show, because ultimately, whilst we might have an industry focus, without people coming to the show, we haven't got a show.
Very true. You touched on briefly before about the Lagoon Club. Now, I did see an incriminating photo of Wally Tench from the Lagoon Club. Did you enjoy the social aspect of the show?
That's probably why I've got such a fond memory of Santry Cove Boat Show, International Boat Show. We did sneak in there. I think the security guards are still looking for us, but never mind. We had a lovely time in there, and we actually caught up with Claire Back in there, and she was kind enough and gracious enough to invite us in and
So Claire is the
Claire's the new GM of Melfi Events.
Okay.
And we had a chat with Claire, and lovely person. She's going to bring a great deal of energy and a lot of new ideas to Sanctuary Cove, and we're
And
really
also
looking
to
forward.
Bulwarks and Bulldust, because she's definitely agreed to be on the show.
Yes, very true, John. And she has agreed to be on the show, and she's actually watched a couple of the episodes and has thoroughly enjoyed them. So that was very good.
Might have even scooped the odd piece for some of her own presentations. She
Well, we
informs us.
won't tell any secrets, John. But so that was fabulous feedback, and obviously we've got other feedback, and we'll cover that off later on. But yeah, look, you know, consumer shows or trade events, whatever you want to call them, they can be very hard work for the exhibitors. It takes a lot of time out of their working week. They are very costly to the company when they come on as an exhibitor. But, you know, like everything else, it's up to those people. It's incumbent on them to make the most. It can be a terrific framework to engage with customers and the general public. And the smart ones seem to know how to do it very, very well. And when you're talking to them and you're walking around and you get some of the feedback, and you'll always get that I'll call it an event or a trade show or a consumer show. You'll always get those that say, you know, that they don't work for them, but you'll probably see them sitting on stools and never engaging with anyone walking past. Sure. And they probably don't do any pre-marketing. They're probably not working the stand, and they're probably not doing any post-follow-up. So it is a terrific framework, I think, to bring the whole industry together. And but, you know, probably needs a review, lots of discussions, you know, a couple of think tanks. Bulwarks would probably be happy to be involved in any of that to help facilitate things within the industry for more discussion for any exhibitor on any level, and also perhaps engage with the visitors more as well. You know, I'm not sure what Melfi are doing. They might be onto this, but you know, post-event surveys, that sort of thing, because it has to be a multi-level event to engage with people and to keep them entertained. Obviously, we've got a lot of nice big white boats, but there's a lot of other brands in here, a lot of other product, you know, a lot of other nuts and bolts, and you know. But if they work it right, it is a great forum, I think, for them to do well.
Sure, and I think what you've alluded to there as well is that these boat shows are such a huge part of a single company's marketing budget for the year. So that has to be traded off now against social media, against print media, against all the other things that we've been doing for years, and it has to be viable. And I still have a concern, I guess, that the organisers of boat shows, not naming anyone in particular, are not making it accessible enough for the smaller operators, much as using an example of one of our sponsors, Melfi Designs, you know, goes in, sets up a show, loses those 4 days of manufacturing time, and then has to balance that against his books. But looking at boat shows in a more global sense, John, obviously you've got a fairly good perspective of boat shows from a global sense. Where are we placed in Australia? You mentioned before that Sanctuary Cove may be best place to be the only boat show, or the only major boat show.
Well, certainly for larger craft, yes. I think you know, it's unlikely that you're going to need deeper draft to be able to be displayed than what we've got, i.e. race boats or really large cruising boats. So I think, you know, the draft issue obviously comes into it. But I think if you look at Dusseldorf this year, we had a situation where even some of the local manufacturers weren't there, and I think this sort of plays into a bigger picture. What does that say to the industry? What does that say to government? And what does that say to the consumers? If you're not there, obviously, you know, Hansi's had a bit of a reworking, and they were clearly one of the ones that weren't there, but Bavaria wasn't there as well. Yet everybody else had flocked there from quite a lot of other countries around the globe, not just around Europe. So boat shows are really important for demonstrating a lot of things, and I think data capture to gather a lot more about what the attendees are seeing, what the visitors are seeing, because they're actually putting their hand in their pocket to buy a ticket and come along, and then what we can do to make that available to people. And certainly Bulwarks and Bulldust is more than happy to perform its part in that, so go to bbdust.com. There is a return section there under contact to fill out and let us know. We'll happily get that information to the right people. And as we say, some of them are coming on. But I think, you know, if you look at the Grande-Motte, what a great way, all multi-hull, and now they've introduced power. I think that having not so much fragmented, but having compartmentalised, whether that's compartmentalised in a grand show or having the show itself just a compartment of the whole boating scene, really, really works. And everybody's got a slightly different situation. How many shows do we all know of where actually getting to it is incredibly difficult? What are we doing about that? Why aren't the waterways being better used for Sanctuary Cove, for instance, instead of trying to cram everybody down a one-lane road? However, I think from an international perspective, you've got FLIBS, which is just phenomenally large. You know, I think we can do everything a bit better, and I think that's where we started from with this, is a discussion about what we can do, but also, more importantly, tapping into the differences of each show and realising that there isn't a cookie cutter approach. This just cannot be a cookie cutter.
No, and to do it better, I think you definitely need to engage with industry, exhibitors, and also the punters, and get feedback from all levels, and just keep developing it, keep improving it. And as I said earlier, you know, the smart ones know how to work the angles. You know, we had an interview recently, one of our guests talked about boat shows. They don't assess a boat show just purely one show on its merit. They will look at that specific boat show over a period of 3 years and look at the ROI. So, you know, because we know the markets change and, you know, things go up and down economically, and they're smart enough to go, all right, well, this one might have been a bit soft, but, you know, what are we going to do to fix it? And they're planning the next one when they've finished, you know, the one that's just been held. So they know what they're doing, and I think that's just they've got the runs on the board. So you had a bit more of a positive experience. I know you were saying in the lead up to the show you weren't particularly looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, look, I did go into Sanctuary Cove this year with a bit of a pessimistic attitude, but I definitely came out of it feeling a lot better. And whilst the most important thing is the attendees at the end of the day, and again, we invite your feedback, but our major points for boat shows are industry growth, bringing the industry together, and boat sales. And I think this year, Sanctuary Cove may have actually got to a much healthier place this year. So we live in hope. We look forward to the first split Sydney boat show, indoor boat show in August, and then the outdoor boat show in Darling Harbour as per normal in October, I think it is. November. So we hold out hope for Australian boat shows here at Bulwarks and Bulldust.
Well, look, Series 1 has been an absolute delight to deliver. We're very, very thankful to you, the listeners and watchers, so thank you very much for that. A big shout out to everybody who's either listed a comment on any of the social media platforms, phoned us, emailed us, or seen us on the key and said how much they've enjoyed it. We really appreciate that, especially those that don't know the pointy end from the blunt. That makes us very thrilled to think that you're getting something from it. We wouldn't be here without the help of the Boatworks Garage 25, Espresso 25, Pantaenius. So we're very appreciative, and of course Melfi for the captain's chair that you've seen everybody sitting in. However, we're ready to rumble. That means season 2's on the way. We look forward to making it and bringing it to you.